The Krathan Empire's massive war fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, all six of his eyes focused on the blue planet displayed on the main screen. His mandibles clicked with satisfaction as he reviewed the scout reports one final time. Such a primitive world, he muttered to his second-in-command, Commander Velnash. No planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms, not even a unified military command. Their largest weapons are mere nuclear devices. This will be over within a single rotation. The Krathan Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds across 3 galaxies. Their plasma weapons could turn entire continents to glass. Their shields could withstand the heat of a star's corona. Their warriors were bred for combat from birth, each one capable of crushing 10 lesser beings with their armored claws alone. Commander Velnash's scales rippled with anticipation. The humans appear to be divided into hundreds of separate nations. Supreme Admiral. They waste their resources fighting among themselves. Our intelligence indicates they've only achieved space travel within their own system. They haven't even colonized their moon properly. Pathetic, Zektar agreed. Send the surrender terms. Give them one of their hours to respond. When they inevitably refuse, we'll demonstrate our power by vaporizing one of their cities. That usually breaks their spirit quickly. The message was transmitted on all frequencies. It was simple and direct, translated into every major Earth language. People of Earth, you have been selected for incorporation into the Krathan Empire. Surrender immediately, and you'll be allowed to serve. Resist, and you'll be destroyed. You have 1 hour. On Earth, the message was received simultaneously by every government, military installation, and civilian communication center. In the United Nations Security Council, an emergency session was called. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals huddled in secure bunkers, trying to verify what their instruments were telling them. The alien fleet was real. The threat was real. In a small apartment in New York City, Maria Rodriguez, a history professor at Columbia University, watched the news with her teenage daughter. The anchor's face was pale as he repeated the alien ultimatum. Maria's daughter clutched her mother's arm. "Mom, what's going to happen to us?" Maria's mind raced through human history. Every invasion, every war, every time humanity had faced extinction. She thought of the Mongols at the gates of Europe, the Black Death, 2 world wars, the Cold War's nuclear standoff. Each time, humans had found a way to survive, to adapt, to overcome. "I don't know, honey," she said softly, "but humans have faced the impossible before." In Moscow, General Dmitry Volkov stood in the Strategic Command Center, watching as his staff tracked the alien fleet's position. 300 ships, each one larger than an aircraft carrier. His aide whispered urgently in his ear about the technical readings. Energy signatures beyond anything in human science, weapons that could punch through mountains. "General, what are your orders?" his aide asked. Volkov's weathered face showed no emotion. His family had survived Napoleon, Hitler, and Stalin. "We prepare to fight," he said simply. "Alert all missile bases. If they want a war, they'll get one." In Tokyo, DR, Kenji Yamamoto rushed through the corridors of the JAXA Space Center, clutching a tablet showing detailed scans of the alien ships. His team had been working frantically to understand the enemy's technology. The power readings were staggering, but something didn't add up. The aliens' confident approach suggested they'd done this many times before, but they seemed to have made a critical miscalculation. "They're treating us like every other civilization they've conquered," he told his colleagues. "But they don't understand what makes humans different." Back on the Krathan flagship, Admiral Zektar grew impatient as the hour deadline approached. His tactical displays showed the humans mobilizing their primitive military forces. Aircraft were being scrambled, ships were putting to sea, ground forces were moving to defensive positions. It was almost amusing. "They actually intend to fight," Commander Velnash observed with something like pity. "Don't they realize the futility?" "Let them," Zektar replied. "It will make a better example for other primitive worlds. Prepare the demonstration strike. Target their city called London. One shot from our main cannon, should be sufficient. As the massive weapon powered up, its energy signature was detected by every observatory on Earth. In hidden bunkers and command centers, fingers hovered over launch buttons. Submarine captains opened their sealed orders. Fighter pilots strapped into their jets. And, in laboratories around the world, scientists worked desperately to find any weakness in the enemy's technology. The hour was almost up. On the streets of London, people stood frozen, looking up at the sky. Some prayed, some held their loved ones, and some stood defiant, refusing to show fear. The British Prime Minister's voice came over the emergency broadcast system. "We shall defend our Earth, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight in space. We shall fight in the atmosphere. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall never surrender." Admiral Zektar's mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among his species. "Fire," he ordered. The plasma beam lanced down from space, a column of superheated energy capable of turning the entire city into a crater. But as it entered Earth's atmosphere, something unexpected happened. The beam began to disperse, its energy dissipating far more rapidly than it should have. By the time it reached the ground, it had weakened to merely devastating rather than apocalyptic force. It carved a trench through Hyde Park and demolished several buildings, killing thousands, but London still stood. "What happened?" Zektar demanded, his 6 eyes blinking in confusion. "Unknown, Supreme Admiral," the weapons officer reported, frantically checking his instruments. The weapon functioned perfectly, but something about this planet's atmosphere interfered with the energy dispersion. "We'll need to recalibrate." As Zektar processed this information, alarms began blaring across his ship. Earth had responded, not with one unified counterattack, but with thousands of individual strikes. Nuclear missiles rose from silos in America, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Israel, France, and Britain. Submarines launched their ballistic arsenals. Every nation with the capability fired everything they had. "Primitive chemical rockets," Commander Velnash scoffed. "Ray shields." The Krathen shields activated, designed to deflect energy weapons and kinetic strikes. The nuclear warheads detonated against them in brilliant flashes, each explosion powerful enough to level a city. But the shields held. The alien fleet remained unharmed. "Is that the best they can do?" Zektar asked, genuinely puzzled. "Chemical explosives and radiation? We mastered defenses against such weapons millennia ago." But even as he spoke, more alarms sounded. The humans weren't stopping. More missiles were launching, conventional weapons were firing, and every satellite capable of offensive action was being turned into a kinetic weapon. The sheer volume of fire was staggering. "Supreme Admiral," the intelligence officer called out, his voice strained. "I'm detecting massive mobilization across the entire planet. Military forces, civilian militias, even their manufacturing bases are converting to weapons production. The entire species is mobilizing for war." Zektar's confidence wavered for just a moment. In his 1,000 conquests, he'd never seen a response quite like this. Most species surrendered after the first demonstration. The stubborn ones usually gave up after losing their capital cities. But these humans seem to be doing something else entirely. "They can't seriously believe they can win," he said, trying to reassure himself. "Order the ground assault to begin. Once they see our warriors in action, they'll understand the futility of resistance." Drop pods began launching from the Krathen ships, each one carrying a squad of the Empire's finest warriors. As they descended toward Earth's major cities, Admiral Zektar settled back in his command throne. The hard part was over. Ground combat was simply a formality. He had no idea how wrong he was. In New York, Maria Rodriguez watched the alien drop pods descending like falling stars. She thought of her ancestors who had survived the conquistadors, of her grandfather who had fought in World War II, of every generation that had refused to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. In Moscow, General Volkov ordered his forces to prepare for urban combat. "Remember Stalingrad," he told his commanders. "Make them pay for every meter." In Tokyo, Dr. Yamamoto's team made a breakthrough. The alien shields had a frequency modulation that could potentially be exploited. It would take time to develop weapons to take advantage of it, but it was a start. All across Earth, 7 billion humans prepared to do what their species had always done when faced with extinction: adapt, survive, and fight with a ferocity that the galaxy had never seen before. The Krathan Empire had declared war on Earth. They thought they were attacking just another primitive world. They were about to learn who humans really are. The first Krathan warriors touched down in Times Square at dawn. Each stood 9 feet tall, encased in powered armor that could shrug off tank rounds. Their plasma rifles could vaporize a human in seconds. Squad leader Gorthe K surveyed the empty streets with satisfaction. The humans had fled as expected. Secure the area, he ordered his squad through the neural link. The humans cower in their holes. This city will fall within the hour. They advanced down Broadway, their heavy footsteps cracking the pavement. The silence was eerie. Windows stared down at them like empty eyes. Abandoned vehicles littered the streets. Gorthe K's armor sensors detected no immediate threats. Then he heard it, a single voice singing. An old human male emerged from a delicatessen, carrying nothing but a baseball bat. He was singing something in a language Gorthe K's translator identified as Yiddish. The man was perhaps 70 years old, wearing a Yankees cap and a worn jacket. Foolish primitive, Gorthe K raised his plasma rifle. Your courage is meaningless. The old man smiled. My name is Samuel Goldstein. My grandparents survived the Holocaust. My parents survived the camps. You think you're the first monsters we've faced. Before Gorthe K could fire, the windows above exploded outward. Thousands of humans appeared, armed with everything from military rifles to hunting weapons to improvised explosives. The Krathan warriors' armor was designed to deflect energy weapons and military-grade projectiles, but the humans weren't using conventional tactics. Molotov cocktails rained down, the burning liquid seeping into armor joints. Construction workers had rigged wrecking balls to swing from cranes, smashing into the aliens with tremendous force. Police snipers aimed for the few exposed points in the armor. Civilians threw homemade acid bombs that began eating through protective plating. Gorthe K's squad returned fire, their plasma beams cutting through buildings and vaporizing dozens of humans. But for every one that fell, 10 more seemed to appear. They attacked from windows, rooftops, sewers, and doorways. They used the city itself as a weapon. Fall back, Gorthe K ordered, but it was too late. A city bus, its driver's seat empty but its accelerator jammed, came careening around the corner and slammed into 2 of his warriors. As they struggled to rise, humans swarmed over them with cutting torches and crowbars, looking for any weakness in their armor. In London, the story was similar but with a distinctly British flavor. Krathan warriors marching down the mall found themselves under attack from football hooligans who had put aside their club differences to fight the common enemy. In the tunnels beneath the city, the London Underground had been turned into a death trap. Veterans of the Troubles had taught urban warfare tactics to anyone willing to learn. Sergeant Major William Davies, a veteran of Afghanistan, coordinated the defense of Westminster. Remember, lads, he told his mixed force of soldiers, police, and civilians, we held this city against the Luftwaffe. These alien bastards aren't getting it either. They had studied the first assaults footage obsessively. The alien armor was tough, but it had weak points at the joints. It was designed for battlefield combat, not the dirty, close-quarters fighting humans excelled at. London's defenders used the city's ancient layout to their advantage, luring Krathan squads into narrow alleys where their superior firepower meant nothing. In the Moscow metro, General Volkov had turned the underground into a fortress. Russian forces had centuries of experience with scorched earth tactics and winter warfare. They flooded sections of the city, creating freezing water traps that short-circuited alien equipment. They used the very cold as a weapon, luring Krathan warriors into refrigerated warehouses and then sealing them in. But it was in the countryside where humanity's true nature revealed itself. In the American Midwest, farmers who had never agreed on anything united to turn their land into a killing field. They dug tank traps that could catch alien walkers. They rigged grain silos to explode. Hunters who knew every tree and rock conducted guerrilla operations that would have made the Viet Cong proud. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous tribes who had resisted colonization for centuries put their knowledge to deadly use. The Krathen warriors, used to fighting in open battlefields or urban environments, found themselves hunted by ghosts who killed with poison darts and disappeared into green hell. Admiral Zektar watched the tactical displays with growing alarm. The ground assault should have been a simple mop-up operation. Instead, his forces were reporting massive casualties. The humans weren't fighting like any species the Empire had encountered before. Supreme Admiral Commander Velnash reported, his voice shaking. 3rd Battalion is requesting immediate extraction from the place called Mumbai. They report the entire population has mobilized against them. Millions of humans attacking with everything from military weapons to kitchen knives. Our warriors are being literally torn apart. Impossible, Zektar snarled. We are the Krathen. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. The humans are different, the intelligence officer interjected nervously. Our psychological profiles were wrong. Most species surrender when faced with overwhelming force to preserve their lives. But humans, they seem to grow more determined. Their history shows countless examples of this behavior. They call it spite or bloody-mindedness. On Earth, the story of the resistance spread like wildfire through social media. Videos of successful attacks on alien warriors went viral within minutes. Tactics that worked were shared globally. Scientists collaborated openly, sharing any weakness they discovered in alien technology. The usual human divisions, race, religion, nationality, suddenly seemed irrelevant. In Tel Aviv, Israeli and Palestinian fighters stood side by side. In Kashmir, Indian and Pakistani forces coordinated their defenses. In the Korean DMZ, North and South Korean soldiers shared ammunition. The alien threat had done something no human leader had ever managed. It had united humanity. Dr. Yamamoto's team in Tokyo made another breakthrough. They had analyzed fragments of destroyed Krathen armor and discovered that the aliens' own shield frequency could be turned against them. Working with teams in Silicon Valley, Bangalore, and Shenzhen, they began developing a weapon that could overload the shields. But the Krathen were learning too. They began adapting their tactics, using orbital bombardment to support ground forces, deploying automated drones to scout ahead. For every adaptation, though, humans found a counter. EMP weapons cobbled together in garage workshops took down the drones. Underground shelters, some dating back to the Cold War, protected against orbital strikes. The Battle of Paris became legendary. When Krathen forces breached the city's defenses, the defenders fell back to the catacombs. 6 million human skeletons bore witness as French resistance veterans taught a new generation how to fight in the tunnels. Alien warriors, used to quick victories, found themselves in a nightmare of ambush and counter-ambush in the ancient ossuary. Maria Rodriguez had joined the New York Resistance. Her knowledge of history proved invaluable in organizing neighborhood defenses. Remember, she told her group, humans have been fighting superior forces since the dawn of time. David beat Goliath. The Greeks held Thermopylae. The Finnish stopped the Soviets. We don't need to match their technology. We need to be more human than they can handle. Her daughter worked with other teenagers, using social media to coordinate flash mobs that would appear, attack, and disperse before the aliens could respond. They called themselves the TikTok Brigade, and their seemingly chaotic tactics drove the methodical Krathen to distraction. After 48 hours of continuous combat, the toll was staggering. Hundreds of thousands of humans had died. Entire city blocks lay in ruins. But the Krathen had lost something they'd never lost before, the certainty of victory. Of the 10,000 warriors deployed in the first wave, fewer than 3,000 remained combat effective. Admiral Zektar convened an emergency war council. How was this possible? He demanded. They're using primitive weapons, chemical explosives, projectile weapons. Some of them are fighting with improvised clubs. It's not their weapons, Supreme Admiral, the senior ground commander reported, nursing injuries sustained when humans had somehow managed to breach his command post. It's their nature. They're not fighting to win in any conventional sense. They're fighting to make us pay for every meter of ground. They're fighting out of pure spite. Their entire evolutionary history is one of persistence, hunting, and tribal warfare, the xenobiologist added. They evolved on a death world, surrounded by predators, in an environment that alternated between ice ages and volcanic catastrophes. Their history is nothing but one existential threat after another. This is what they're designed for. Then, we'll simply glass the planet from orbit, Zektar decided. If we can't take it intact, we'll destroy it as an example. Sir, the weapons officer spoke hesitantly. That would require dropping our shields to divert power to the main guns. And the humans have been launching continuous attacks. Thousands of nuclear weapons, kinetic strikes, even ramming attacks with their primitive spacecraft. If we lower shields, Zektar's mandibles clicked in frustration. It was a standoff. The Krathen couldn't take the planet through ground assault, but neither could they destroy it from orbit without making themselves vulnerable. And all the while, human resistance grew stronger. On Earth, the fragments of alien technology recovered from fallen warriors were being reverse-engineered at a frantic pace. Human creativity and adaptability, usually wasted on consumer gadgets and social media, turned to the task of survival. In 100 secret laboratories, weapons were being developed that merged human ingenuity with alien science. General Volkov stood in the ruins of Red Square, watching his forces escort captured Krathen warriors to imprisonment. The aliens' armor had been cracked open, revealing beings that, for all their size and strength, bled just like anything else. Sir, his aide reported, the Americans say they've successfully tested their first energy weapon based on capture technology. The Chinese claim they'll have shields operational within days. Every nation is sharing their developments. Volkov almost smiled. It only took an alien invasion to make us work together. Perhaps we should thank them. In space, Admiral Zektar faced a decision no Krathen commander had ever faced before. Continue the assault and risk losing his entire fleet to accumulated damage, or retreat and face the shame of being the first to fail in conquest. Neither option was acceptable to the proud warrior race. As he pondered, new contacts appeared on his screens. Human ships, primitive by Krathen standards, but armed with nuclear weapons and crewed by people with nothing to lose, were rising from Earth's surface. They weren't military vessels. They were converted cargo ships, passenger liners, anything that could reach orbit and carry a warhead. They're planning ramming attacks, Commander Velnash realized. Suicide runs. Madness, Zektar muttered. But was it? These humans had shown they would pay any price, bear any burden, make any sacrifice to defend their world. They weren't fighting for glory or conquest. They were fighting for survival, and that made them infinitely more dangerous than any opponent the Krathen had ever faced. The war for Earth had only just begun, and already it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Krathen Empire had expected to fight a primitive civilization. Instead, they had awakened something far more terrifying, the collective will of humanity pushed to the brink. And humans had only just begun to fight. 6 months had passed since the Krathen Empire declared war on Earth. 6 months that had changed both species forever. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Zektar's once pristine fleet showed the scars of constant combat. Hull breaches patched with emergency plating, weapon systems jury-rigged to keep functioning, and shield generators running far beyond their design specifications. The humans had been relentless. Every day brought new attacks. Nuclear missiles, kinetic strikes, ramming attempts by ships crewed by volunteers who knew they wouldn't return. The Krathen fleet's point defense systems had destroyed thousands of such attacks, but some always got through. Death by 1,000 cuts. On Earth's surface, The war had transformed into something neither side had anticipated. The initial Krathan beachheads had been contained, but not eliminated. Alien bases dotted the planet like infected wounds, surrounded by kilometers of devastated no-man's land where human and Krathan forces clashed daily. Maria Rodriguez, now a major in the Earth Defense Forces, studied the tactical display in the converted subway station that served as New York's military command center. The integration of captured alien technology had accelerated beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Human soldiers now carried hybrid weapons, Earth manufacture, but incorporating Krathan power cells and focusing crystals. The shield generators are holding, Dr. Yamamoto reported over the secure link from Tokyo. His hair had gone gray in the past months, but his eyes burned with determination. We can now protect major cities from orbital bombardment for limited periods. It's draining our entire power grid, but it works. How long until full coverage? Maria asked. Years, if we had years, Yamamoto admitted. But I think this war will be decided much sooner than that. He was right. Both sides were approaching a critical point. The Krathan couldn't maintain their siege indefinitely. Their supply lines stretched across galaxies, and for the first time in their empire's history, there were whispers of dissent among their subordinate species. If humanity could hold out against the Krathan, what did that mean for the 1,000 other conquered worlds? Admiral Zektar understood this better than anyone. He stood in his war room, studying intelligence reports that made no sense by any conventional military doctrine. The humans had suffered catastrophic losses, entire cities reduced to rubble, hundreds of millions dead, their infrastructure shattered. By any reasonable measure, they should have surrendered months ago. Instead, they had grown stronger. The survivors of each battle became better fighters. Children who had watched their parents die grew into guerrilla warriors who struck from the shadows. Scientists who had lost colleagues threw themselves into weapons research with fanatic dedication. The entire species had transformed itself into a weapon aimed at Krathan destruction. Supreme Admiral Commander Velnash entered, his scales dull with exhaustion. "We've received a communication from the Empire. The High Council is concerned about the resources being expended on this campaign." Concerned, Zektar's mandibles clicked dangerously. "Do they think I'm wasting ships and warriors for my amusement?" Several subordinate species have begun showing signs of unrest. Velnash continued carefully. "They're asking if humanity's resistance means the Empire can be defeated. Some frontier worlds have reduced their tribute shipments." This was what Zektar had feared. The Krathan Empire ruled through the perception of invincibility. One stubborn world holding out for months had created cracks in that facade. If he retreated now, those cracks would become chasms. "Prepare the Doomsday Protocol," he ordered finally. "If we cannot have this world, we'll ensure no one can. Full planetary bombardment. We'll crack their world like an egg. Sir, that will require dropping all shields and diverting every scrap of power to the weapons. We'll be completely vulnerable for the charging period. The humans have bloodied us, but they're still primitives," Zektar rationalized. "What can they do in the few hours it takes to charge our weapons?" Everything as it turned out. The moment Krathan shields began dropping, every observation post on Earth detected it. The information flashed around the globe in seconds. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for. All or nothing, win or die. In hidden bunkers, missile silos that had been kept in reserve opened their doors. These weren't the nuclear weapons fired in the first desperate hours of the invasion. These were new hybrid weapons, tipped with warheads designed using captured Krathan technology. They incorporated shield-penetrating frequencies discovered by Dr. Yamamoto's team and explosive compounds reverse-engineered from alien munitions. From the depths of Earth's oceans, submarines that had been lying silent for months rose to launch depth. Their crews had been waiting in the dark, knowing this moment would come. Each submarine carried humanity's deadliest new weapons, torpedoes designed to home in on Krathan energy signatures and detonate with the force of small suns. But the most audacious part of Earth's counterattack came from an unexpected source. The International Space Station, expanded and weaponized over the months of siege, revealed its true purpose. It had been transformed into humanity's first true warship, armed with railguns that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Colonel Sarah Chun commanded the station. She and her crew of 40 volunteers from every nation on Earth had been waiting for this moment. "All stations report ready," her weapons officer announced. "We have targeting solutions on 30% of the enemy fleet." "Then, let's make history," Chin said quietly. "For Earth, fire everything." The first human warship opened fire, its railguns sending tungsten projectiles screaming through space. Without shields, the Krathan ships were vulnerable to kinetic impacts. The projectiles, each no larger than a pin, hit with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. Simultaneously, thousands of missiles rose from Earth's surface. The Krathan point defense systems, optimized to work in conjunction with shields, struggled to track them all. Submarine-launched weapons curved up from unexpected angles. Aircraft delivered cruise missiles to the edge of space before turning back. Admiral Zektar watched in horror as his tactical display lit up with incoming threats. "All power to weapons," he screamed. "Fire immediately. Charging at only 60%. Supreme Admiral. We need more time. We don't have more time. Fire with what we have." The Krathan doomsday weapons discharged prematurely, sending columns of destructive energy toward Earth. But at reduced power and poorly aimed, they struck with far less force than intended. Cities burned, millions died, but the planet itself endured. And then humanity's counterstrike hit home. Nuclear explosions blossomed among the Krathan fleet like deadly flowers. Railgun projectiles punched through hull armor designed to deflect energy weapons. Ships that had terrorized 1,000 worlds began to die. The pride of the Krathan fleet, Zektar's own flagship, took hit after hit. Explosions ripped through its decks. Life support failed. Artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. In the chaos, Zektar heard something that chilled him to his core. Human transmissions on Krathan frequencies. They had cracked the Empire's encryption. "Attention, Krathan fleet." The transmission came in perfect Krathan battle language. "This is General Elizabeth Harper, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. You came to our world expecting easy prey. You found something else. You found humanity." On the screen, Zektar could see human ships rising from Earth's surface. Not the improvised ramming vessels of before, but actual warships incorporating the best of human engineering and captured alien technology. In 6 months, humans had gone from a pre-contact civilization to a spacefaring military power. "You have 2 choices," General Harper continued. "Surrender unconditionally or be destroyed. You have 5 minutes to decide." Zektar's first instinct was to refuse. The Krathan never surrendered. But as he looked around his ruined bridge, at his exhausted and demoralized crew, at tactical displays showing 1/3 of his fleet already destroyed or disabled, he knew the truth. They had lost. "How?" he asked the universe. "How did primitives do this to us?" Commander Velnash, wounded but still at his post, provided the answer. "They didn't fight like a conquered species, Supreme Admiral. They fought like a species that refused to be conquered. We came to their world with superior technology, but they had something we didn't understand. They had the will to sacrifice everything for their freedom." The 5 minutes passed. Zektar hadn't responded, his pride still warring with reality. General Harper didn't give him another chance. "All Earth forces, execute Operation Twilight. Destroy them all." The final phase of Earth's counterattack began. Hidden satellites revealed themselves as weapon platforms. The moon base, constructed in secret using mining equipment, fired mass drivers loaded with nuclear warheads. Even civilian spacecraft, hastily armed, joined the assault. But the most devastating blow came from within. Throughout the battle, human hackers had been working to penetrate Krathan computer systems. Using captured equipment and aided by alien prisoners who had been convinced to help, they had found vulnerabilities. As the Krathan fleet struggled to respond to the physical assault, Their computer systems began failing. Navigation went offline. Weapons couldn't target. Life support systems reversed their function. The battle became a slaughter. Krathen's ships collided with each other in the confusion. Others vented atmosphere as airlocks opened randomly. Those that tried to flee found their hyperdrives sabotaged. The mighty Krathen Empire fleet, which had never known defeat, died above the skies of Earth. Admiral Zektar's flagship was among the last to fall. As his bridge burned around him and his crew lay dead or dying, he managed to send one final transmission, not to his fleet, but to the Empire. "Do not come to this world," he gasped out, green blood flowing from multiple wounds. "The humans, they're not primitives. They're not prey. They're something else. They're survivors. And they will not stop. They will not surrender. They will come for you now. The humans are coming." The transmission ended as his ship's reactor went critical. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface, a new star in the sky, marking the end of the Krathen invasion. On Earth, the celebrations were muted. The cost had been beyond imagination. 1 billion dead, cities in ruins, entire ecosystems destroyed. But humanity had survived. More than that, they had won. The debris of the Krathen fleet would provide technology and resources to rebuild, to reach for the stars not as conquerors but as defenders. Maria Rodriguez stood in Times Square where the invasion had begun. The alien bodies had been cleared away, but the scars remained. Her daughter, no longer a teenager but a veteran of the TikTok brigade, stood beside her. "What happens now?" her daughter asked. Maria looked up at the stars, where human ships now patrolled. Already, scientists were studying captured hyperdrive technology. Already, leaders were discussing what to do about the Krathen Empire and its 1,000 enslaved worlds. Already, humans were being human, adapting, learning, preparing. "Now we make sure this never happens again," Maria said. "To us or anyone else." The word spread through the galaxy faster than light. The Krathen Empire had attacked a primitive world and been destroyed. The humans were coming, not as conquerors but as liberators. Species that had lived under Krathen rule for millennia suddenly saw hope. Dr. Yamamoto, now head of Earth's new Department of Xenotechnology, studied the star charts recovered from Krathen databases. 1,000 enslaved worlds waited out there. 1,000 species who might want their freedom. "We broke their fleet," he told the assembled leaders of Earth. "But the Empire still exists. They'll come again, eventually, or we can take the fight to them." The decision was unanimous. Humanity had been forged in the fires of invasion into something new. They were no longer divided nations squabbling over resources. They were a united species with a purpose. Within a year, the first Earth fleet launched toward Krathen space. Ships built with hybrid technology, crewed by veterans of the invasion. They carried a simple message to the enslaved worlds of the Empire. "We are humans. We were attacked, and we survived. We were challenged, and we evolved. Now we come not as conquerors, but as proof that empires can fall, that freedom can be won, that no species is destined to kneel forever. We are humans, and we remember what it's like to fight for survival. Stand with us." The Krathen Empire had made a fatal mistake. They had attacked Earth expecting to find another primitive world to enslave. Instead, they had awakened humanity and given them a cause. They had united a divided species and given them the tools to reach the stars. They had declared war on Earth without knowing who humans really are. Now the galaxy would learn. Humans were not conquerors or empire builders. They were survivors, innovators, and, when pushed to the brink, the most dangerous species in the universe. Not because of their technology or their weapons, but because of their spirit. The Krathen had come to Earth as predators. They had found something far more dangerous, a species that had evolved in the space between predator and prey, capable of being either as needed. A species that turned adversity into strength, defeat into victory, and invasion into evolution. The war was over. The real story of humanity in the galaxy had just begun, and somewhere in the ruins of the Krathen Empire's confidence, Other species began to whisper a word that would echo through history: hope. The humans were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same.